Hello, everyone. Welcome into the WST Postgame reaction. My name's Connor Hrabchak. In a moment, I'll be joined by Lyss Houde. And together, we're breaking down the Jets' 5-4 win over the New York Islanders from Canada Life Center, a game that wrapped up their 5-game homestand and their third straight win. And the Jets officially go 3-1-1 on this 5-game homestand, ending the homestand with 3 straight wins. Their first time they've won 3 consecutive games since the start of November. And since the start of November, they haven't won really many games at all. So to string together 3 straight, the fans inside Canada Life Center were having a blast. Lyss and I were in the building, up in the press box covering the game, and we're here to share our full thoughts from the Jets' 5-4 win over the New York Islanders. Let's bring in my co-host here on the WST Postgame Reaction, Lyss Houde. Lyss, just saw you at the rink, but what are kind of your initial takeaways from the Jets winning their third straight game, this one 5-4 over the Islanders?
Tonight had a bit of a different, series of events and emotions that kind of went through the game. Initially, I was like, okay, a Tuesday night game against an out-of-division opponent, like the Jets haven't had the greatest track record the last couple of weeks. Like, we'll see how this goes. Might be a bit of a slog, but it is what it is. And at least we get to see Matthew Schaefer. Game starts, Matthew Schaefer gets pulled by, I believe, a concussion spotter very early. And I'm like, man, what is tonight going to be like? The second period changed my perspective completely. That was one of the most fun periods of hockey I've watched in a long time. There was everything, like a penalty shot, couple of goals,
disallowed goals,
the Winnipeg Jets coughing up a lead, disallowed goals, some like craziness with the refs blowing the whistle when Logan Stanley, who was on like a crazy offensive shift, wound up to take a shot, but then they blew it down because Schaefer, who is now back in the game, was injured. There's so much happening over the course of that period. And then by the third period, we're just having a ball. It was having, so much fun. And, Jets come home with a win to now make it 3 straight, which is, I don't know if they had won 3 straight this year many times, even before they went down to the dumps. Twice. Okay.
They had a 5 or 6 game winning streak earlier in the season.
Right.
And then a 3-game winning streak on like October 28th, 30th, and November 1st kind of thing. And now here we are.
Here we are again.
And here we are.
Straight out of an 11-game losing streak right into a 3-game win streak, which is pretty much as good as you could ask for. Not that tonight was the most beautiful sequence of events by any means, but it was fun. I had so much fun. What a great game. And then, to cap it all off, we did get to see a bit of a Matthew Schaefer masterclass in a few different moments, which is what all of us showed up for. So no notes, except lots of notes, because I had a great time tonight.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And I think you put it well, like Tuesday night against the Islanders, not usually a big draw, but you're excited to see Schaefer, but he misses the first 10 minutes of the first because of an injury. You're not sure how that's going to go. And you just don't think that this game's going to have much juice to it in the first place. And then that second period happens where there was a lot of juice to this game, and there was so much entertainment to be had for the fans inside Canada Life Center. And the Jets come away with the 5-4 win. They go up 3-0, blow the lead as the Islanders get a goal, and then Heineman scores on a penalty shot. And then shortly thereafter, they make it 3-3. And then the Jets crawl back and get 2 quick goals late in the second period. They get that late second period goal. They get it instead of giving it up, and they hold on. Matthew Schaefer does score with just 45.1 seconds left in this one to cut it to 5-4, but the Jets are able to lock things down and keep it at bay. Lyss, what's kind of your biggest takeaway from this game from a Winnipeg Jets perspective? I do want to talk about Matthew Schaefer. We'll get to him in a moment. But from a Jets perspective, I think, 11 straight losses and the 3 straight wins. In all of these games, there's been things you've liked, the top line at times. The second line has come on as of late with Perfetti and Taves and Velarde. What are some of the things you did like from this game, and maybe some of the things you didn't like? Because a 5-4 game, there's naturally going to be things you like and don't like.
I think the biggest kind of storyline for me, the biggest sort of takeaway positive thing that maybe I want to really circle is that consecutive efforts now, back to back, 3 games in a row, multiple games in a row, more often than not in the last stretch of games, the second line looks great. And maybe the question mark, the headline, if I was writing this, is it time to put some respect on Gabe Vilardi's name? I thought that tonight, he definitely had some moments where he bobbled some pucks you wouldn't like to have seen him bobble, and a couple things like that where the finesse wasn't there on every single puck touch that he had. But it seems like every line that Gabe Vilardi has played on this year has been good. Since he got kind of demoted is not the right word, even though it technically is, to that second line to give the Winnipeg Jets a little bit more of a top 6 feel as opposed to just a top line plus bottom 9. guess that rhymes. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. They have looked a lot better. I know that top line has struggled a little bit more in his absence, but man, oh man, does Jonathan Toews look good? Does Cole Perfetti look good? And I feel like it's partially the Gabe Vilardi effect. He is such a fun player to watch. Everyone who's listened to our content or follows me on socials knows that I think the world of him as a player. I think he's just one of the most fun offensive players to watch in the National Hockey League, and I don't even say that lightly. And so that's kind of the big positive thing for me, is that this isn't just a flash in the pan. This line is actually starting to come together and look really good. They've been quite good in the last few games here. So I think if I had to circle one thing that I really liked in this game, it was a continuation of that and them looking really fun and dynamic.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I want to bring up a goal here. We'll go to the goal visualizer early. We love doing that here on the post-game reaction, where it's kind of a little bit of both. You're talking about that second line, and you're also talking about, okay, on this goal in particular, Jonathan Toews isn't on the ice. It's actually Adam Lowry, but Perfetti and Vilardi are driving the net on kind of a 3-on-2 play, and it's a really nice play where Perfetti drives the middle, takes the defenders back, Vilardi drops it to Morrissey, who passes it down low to Perfetti. He tries to jam it out front. It doesn't get there. The puck squeaks out to Josh Morrissey, who I thought had an incredible game, and he kind of feathers a shot through traffic, and it beats Ilya Sorokin. This put the Jets up 2-0 at the time, but I think for me, last game, me and Tyson did the post game after the Devils game, and we were just, raving about Cole Perfetti and how good of a game we thought he had. I think this is another moment where Cole Perfetti's putting himself in a really good spot here, not only to drive the defenders back on a 3-on-2, but get himself in a position where he can receive this pass from Josh Morrissey and look for that backdoor tap in for Gabe Vilardi. He can also shoot that puck. The pass gets disrupted, but it's still in a high danger spot, squeaks out to Josh Morrissey, and they end up getting a goal. Cole Perfetti putting himself in spots to facilitate, which is what he's good at, what separates him at the NHL level is his ability to pass and see the ice. He needs to put himself in the spots to do that. And I think we're seeing more of that recently. And I wanted to point out this second goal here as an example of that, where Perfetti drives the lane. So he's helping out his teammates in that sense, but also making himself an option down low where he can kind of be that versatile scorer, where he can take that to the net or he can slide it back door, and maybe it's a lucky bounce, but it ends up in the back of the net for the Winnipeg Jets and a 2-0 lead at the time. So that second line list, I'm totally with you. They're really turning around, and the best iteration of the Jets second line this season, easily, like by far, they're actually producing, and the bar is very low in terms of best second lines of the season, but this line, the past number of games has really produced, and the underlying numbers are suggesting that it's sustainable, and they're actually outchancing and outshooting their opponents as well. What are maybe some of the negatives for you, Lyss, from this game? For me, it's defensive coverage. I don't know, like the third goal for the Islanders, we can bring up the goal visualizer again. There's a guy just wide open in the middle of the slot. You saw that a lot. Hellebuck did make some saves. There may be some he'd like to have back, but the defensive coverage just isn't at that same lockdown level that it has been at times this season, but of course last season as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I completely agree with you. And I think there are kind of two sides to the coin here, where I felt that there were multiple times. Maybe we'll start with my point as it kind of bleeds into yours. And my point is that the Winnipeg Jets created multiple odd man rushes tonight, and they don't always do that. They're not necessarily one of the best rush teams in the league. So I was really pleased with kind of some of their work in the neutral zone to get it, through the New York Islanders to be able to generate those odd man rushes. I don't think they got a shot off of a single one tonight. They didn't play almost any of those odd man rushes properly. And what happens when you don't get a shot off, or even when you get off a shot that you don't really like or anything, which we don't even have to go down that road because the Jets barely created anything on those odd man rushes. It's very easy for the puck to turn around, do some simple math, and have numbers going the other way for the New York Islanders. And I think that kind of led towards some of those defensive breakdowns and that coverage that you're kind of identifying, Connor, that I think really was the biggest problem for the Jets tonight. It starts with a lack of offense being created in those moments where you should and can capitalize. And then it turns into kind of exposing some of their weaknesses to kind of cover the guts of the ice and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And let's bring up that goal that I mentioned, that third goal from the Islanders where, Pionk gets kind of tangled up on a forecheck, loses the puck to Casey Cizikas. Let me restart this one. We kind of missed the dump in. The Islanders dump the puck in. Hellebuck slides it over to Pionk, who has time to make a play there. And Cizikas, jumps on it quickly, who finds Kyle McLean all alone, vacated in the middle of the slot. And he has time and space to pick his corner and beat Connor Hellebuck with the shot. Another one where we've seen a lot of this from the Winnipeg Jets this year, not just Neil Pionk. I'm not trying to pick on him, but where the forecheck gets to them and immediately off the forecheck, I feel like teams are able to generate a quick chance because the Jets are, almost in breakout mode. When Neil Pionk gets this puck, you can see where Lowry and Niederreiter and Nemeskov all are. They're kind of shifting to go up the wall and take this and get into the neutral zone. But that turnover just throws everyone off. It's a mad scramble, and no one takes Kyle McLean in the middle of the slot, and that ends up tying the game. And again, like I said, this was 3 goals in 3 minutes, I think it was, for the Islanders. So one of these obviously was a penalty shot, which they just show the penalty shot. But this was another one, Anthony Duclair, where the Jets are kind of in a defensive structure in zone. There's a bit of a breakdown. Sandberg takes the guy in the corner. Pionk's maybe a step behind, and then Duclair, maybe that's one Connor Hellebuck would like to have back, like I said earlier. But just another opportunity for an Islanders player to step into a shot, has time and space in maybe not a super high danger spot, but definitely a scoring chance for Anthony Duclair, who scored a lot of goals in his NHL career. And there's just too many of these where there's a lot of these that don't result in goals either. And eventually the dam is kind of going to break in these games. There might be 3 or 4 chances like this one that lead up to this one. This is just the one that goes in. So it's the one that we analyze. But I feel like things like this are happening far too often where the Jets are maybe in breakout mode or they're in their in-zone defense. And then just randomly, you'll see a player pop open in the middle of the slot list. I don't know if you're kind of seeing the same or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you kind of described all those to a T, and I like the way that you kind of identified some of those pressure points that I think are really important to consider going forward. And I think, even Adam Lowry, who does the nice little piece with Sarah Leski at the end of the game, as we often see the Jets do after a win. Adam Lowry first started the game, scored the eventual game winner. Mm-hmm. His initial reaction to the game was, hey, not the prettiest win of all time, but a win's a win, we'll take it kind of thing, very tongue-in-cheek. But the team recognizes that this wasn't exactly the necessarily the full 60-minute perfectly clean effort that they're looking for. But I think that's good in a way, right? Because they were losing all of these games that were like this. The whole idea, the idea of, giving up 3 goals in 2 whatever minutes it was that you said, the Winnipeg Jets of yesterday lose that game in a second. That game is over before the final buzzer even sounds if they give up that many goals in that short of a period of time. But that didn't happen tonight. And, they didn't score when, Roy eventually pulls the goalie with, 18 minutes left in the first period or whatever it is that he does. And so there were definitely some moments where the Islanders were putting down the pressure and Matthew Schaefer kind of went God mode on defending Kyle Connor and then ended up scoring that goal to bring the Isles with one. It was an exciting hockey game kind of all the way through. But again, this is the whole idea of you score 2 goals after you give up those 3, as opposed to just scoring the 1 goal. And that Matthew Schaefer goal isn't as much of a backbreaker. You still have that cushion. And this is what I keep saying. I know how simplistic it sounds, but it's very important. The Winnipeg Jets have scored multiple goals. They've scored more goals in the last 3-4 games than they did that entire 11-game losing streak. And that run support is something that's so important. And even if it's goals going off of butts or bad bounces and all this sort of stuff, you got to get those pucks to the net in the ways that you want to get them there, as opposed to necessarily waiting for the perfect shot. Finding ways to create better shots, not necessarily perfect ones, but better shots, I think is so important. And we've seen the Winnipeg Jets do it a little bit more, especially with, further down in the lineup. Every single line's been getting on the score sheet lately, which has been huge. And I think that, that was what was so important about this game, is that not only were they scoring more goals than just, 1 or 2, which we were seeing a ton over that losing stretch, they score quite a few and they're able to continue scoring after, the tables kind of turn against them, and they go into the stretch where they're feeling perhaps a little bit down and a little bit worried or whatever you want to call it, and they're able to kind of keep going. I think that's mentally a huge stride for this group. So I think that that's a nice way to sort of look at this, and ethical tank, whatever you want to call it. This 3-game losing streak, I think, has really instilled a lot more kind of momentum and excitement in the group as well as the fan base.
Do you think they let in the Schaefer goal at the end just so they could win a 1-goal game?
I think so. Just ask, hey Scott. Well, ask him tomorrow. I don't know if they practice tomorrow before
Scott
they
O'Neill did joke after the Devils game, because if you remember, the Jets missed multiple empty nets in that game. He joked that they purposely missed the empty net so that they could win a 1-goal game. Wasn't so much the same tonight with giving up a goal to make it a 1-goal game, but the 1-goal games have been such an issue for this Jets team. The 11-game losing streak, 9 of them were by 1 goal. One of the ones that wasn't was an Oilers game where it was 2-1 with an empty netter late. So that I mentally count that as a 1-goal game. But look, this team, last year they were so dynamite at 1-goal games. And this year you could argue that they're making a lot of their bad luck with the 1-goal game losses and their record being very poor in those games. But out of sheer probabilities, that was going to swing a little bit, and it has, at least in the last 2 games. And it's up to the Winnipeg Jets to kind of build off of that and make it so that they're not in these 1-goal games and not relying on overtime and all of these things, and getting back to what they did last year, which was blowing teams out. And if they can do that, they'll be where they want to be as an organization, which is competing for the playoffs. But we got a long way to go to talk about the playoffs, because this team, coming off an 11-game losing streak, has only won 3 in a row. They'll look to keep that going Thursday against the Wild. But a good 1-goal win for the Winnipeg Jets, which is something that has been rare so far this season. I promised I'd talk about Matthew Schaefer. I just want to rave about one play, because he's awesome. Like, we watched the whole game. We got robbed.
Which one, man?
Yeah, I know. We got robbed of him playing the first period, essentially. But
still played like 23 minutes or something.
Yeah,
Like,
the third period, when they were trailing, they were throwing him out there all the time.
Load management doesn't exist when you haven't even finished hitting puberty yet, and you're still like a young growing boy, and you can go out there and do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Burn off some energy. My mom used to let off my brother kind of like a couple streets over on our way home from things, so you could run home and get some energy out.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing with Matthew Schaefer, because he's a child.
He's got a full month or 3 weeks to rest coming up in February, because they're not taking him for the Olympic team, right? So
get that boy on that terrible Milan ice. Get him into those half-painted locker rooms ASAP.
Yeah, get him in those ugly Canada jerseys ASAP.
ASAP.
The one play I want to talk about was with the net empty. Kyle Connor gets the puck at the Jets blue line, and he's one-on-one with Matthew Schaefer. There's no one to pass the puck to. There's nowhere. Well, there's not nowhere to go. There's everywhere to go. He has the whole ice to dangle this way or dangle that way. And Matthew Schaefer goes one-on-one defending Kyle Connor, basically the length of the ice, where Kyle Connor couldn't shoot because Schaefer was right on him. And then Kyle Connor finally gets some separation right around the hash marks in the offensive zone, and Schaefer makes a diving poke check to completely nullify the offensive possession for the Winnipeg Jets, where Kyle Connor is going in on an empty net. Who would you rather have one-on-one in open space on the Winnipeg Jets? I'm taking Kyle Connor. Schaefer goes stride for stride with him the whole length of the ice, diving poke check. The Islanders get the puck back. They go back down the ice, and then Schaefer scores the goal with 45 seconds left to get them back within a goal. I'm like, this kid is 18, and he just went one-on-one with Kyle Connor, forced the puck away, went back down the ice, and scored the goal to get his team back into the game. Like, there were so many plays throughout the game where his skating is just on full display, the offensive creativity, 100%. But the ability to defend Kyle Connor one-on-one with the whole ice for Kyle Connor to work with, my jaw was on the floor. And then go down and score. I mean, that was the icing on the cake, I guess. But Lyss, that play, I mean, we were sitting next to each other in the press box. We were both like, wow, that is just incredible defending from an 18-year-old against one of the best scorers in the NHL. It's crazy.
I mean, you're watching it because the play keeps going, right? Because he follows him all the way. It's not like it's like just the diving poke check. Like, you're following,
yes,
waiting for Kyle Connor to get around him, and he never does. And you're like, holy smokes, this kid's got hands, bro. And, one topic that I could talk about forever, and I won't bore everyone with it tonight, is the whole idea of quote-unquote defensive metrics for young players in particular, when they're kind of first becoming acclimatized to the league, and everyone loves to throw the Connor Bedard, Jay Fresh card out, or whatever you want to call it. And like,
Jack Hughes
defensive metrics just have so many different layers and conversations and nuances to them and stuff like that. But that's the sort of stuff that you watch and you're like, that is entirely decision making. He's reading
poise.
What Kyle Connor is doing. It's poise, and it's having the physical tools to be able to actually perform in the way that you want to in that situation that you're reading correctly, right? Because those are the different components. Is A, are you making the right decisions? And B, can you handle executing on said decisions that you're making? And he does both excellently in that situation, like all the way through, covering that player, no penalty drawn, turn around, go the other way, cycle the puck as the point guy with crowded ice out there, and eventually score the goal. Like, that's the sort of stuff that, if you want to look at Matthew Schaefer's micro stats, and like, sure, maybe they're not perfect defensively or anything like that, but that's what makes a defenseman to me, is that a play like that. And so those are the things that will get better with time, and those are the tools that you see on full display that make you go, yeah, that kid's a star.
And he's 18, like, I totally agree with you 100%. And it's like, okay, say it takes him 4 years to figure out how to really be a shutdown defenseman. Then he'll be 22 and he'll be on his second contract, Like, I don't know.
You're saying guys can be 22 and start being awesome and wonderful, and no, just kidding. Yeah. We're not going to get into the Cole Perfetti argument right now.
The Cole Perfetti, yeah, bring it back to Cole Perfetti always. No, but I just can't get over the fact that he's doing this at such a young age. He was just drafted first overall in the most recent draft. You just don't really see that in hockey. Usually the number one picks come in and they play okay. They're kind of drowning in tough competition, but Schaefer has been swimming with the tough competition. And Kyle Connor one-on-one with an empty net with the full length of the ice for him to work with is absolutely tough competition. And he was up to the task. So just wanted a quick word on Matthew Schaefer there, because we've seen him twice this year. The Jets played him super early in the season, and you never know. Rookies can kind of work off adrenaline in the first couple of games and look a lot better then than they do later in the season when they maybe hit a rookie wall. Schaefer has not hit the rookie wall. Can confirm that guy was all over the ice in this game for the time that he played. Of course, he missed about a period earlier on. Let's get to our 2 segments here on the post-game reaction, starting with this one.
The hardest working Jet.
It's the hardest working Jet of the game. We give out the hard hat here on the WST post-game reaction. The Jets give out jackets after their wins. They went about 3 weeks, almost a month, without giving out the jackets at all. Now, it seems like everyone's getting a touch. I'm not sure who got the jackets tonight, but we give out the hard hat for the hardest working Jet here on the post-game reaction. Let us know in the comments down below who yours is. Lyss, who do you got? Who's your hardest working Jet from tonight's game?
Yeah, so I'm not like other girls, and I'm not picking who did get the jackets today, because I believe it was Mark Scheifele and Adam Lowry who received them from the team in this one. I am going to give it to the guy that I kind of teased about 30 seconds ago. Cole Perfetti is going to get my hardest working Jet of the game. I thought there were some moments that he had some amazing ozone touches tonight. Amazing primary assist, obviously, on the Josh Morrissey goal. That whole shift kind of starts and ends with Cole Perfetti and his decision-making there. Want to give some love, obviously, to Gabe Vilardi, which I did earlier in the segment, as well as Jonathan Toews. All three of them I thought had a great game tonight, and it very much shows when they're able to kind of feed off of one another like that. But Cole Perfetti's a guy who's had a hot stick lately, and he didn't shoot the puck as much tonight, but the shots were still happening when he was out there. And again, it's always nice in a game like this where they seem to be trading chances a little bit, a couple odd man rushes and all that going the other way, not giving up a whole ton either. So, not that I'm a coach, not that I'm the expert, and hockey's always that simple, but if you can create a decent amount and not give up a lot, that's a pretty good recipe for success. So Cole Perfetti's a guy who everyone's been pretty hard on in the last month or so. That's my guy, right? I believe in this player's toolkit a ton, and so it's been really nice to see the last couple of games of him looking fantastic. Connor, you chose him on our Trending Up segment on WST Sunday Live this week because he's had a couple of great games, and he followed up, your choice on Sunday morning with a great game on Sunday afternoon and another good one tonight. So he gets my hardest working Jet.
So what you're saying is I know puck.
Jury's still out.
Appreciate it. No, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. I don't know. Anyways, no, but you're bang on with that, because the line tonight, 11 minutes at 5-on-5, they outshot the Islanders in their minutes. The shot attempts were in their favor. Scoring chances 8-4. Hiding chances 4-1.
Get my dog back on PP1 ASAP.
Yeah, I'm ready. I mean, the power play scored tonight, and Jonathan Toews was the one that did score. But I'm kind of here for more Cole Perfetti power play time if the Jets do choose to go that route. I'm going to go with Josh Morrissey. And Josh Morrissey,
now you know puck.
Yeah.
You know puck.
Yeah, Captain Obvious pick here. But Josh Morrissey, there are some games in the season where he's like baseline good all the time. He's very consistent, very good in his own end. He'll have some tough games throughout the season. Who doesn't? But there are also games on the flip side of that throughout the season where he just looks like the best player on the ice. And to me, tonight was one of those games. You look at the analytics with him on the ice. The Jets scored 3 goals with Josh Morrissey on the ice tonight, one of which was Josh Morrissey's goal. None against with Josh Morrissey on the ice. So the other pairings maybe you could look at as a bit of a tougher night. But 80% of the expected goals. The scoring chances with Josh Morrissey on the ice at 5-on-5 tonight were 16-3. Shots on goal were 13-5 in the Jets' favor. Like, with Morrissey on the ice tonight, the Jets tilted the ice in their favor, and he's a big reason for that. You talk about Matthew Schaefer flying around and doing all that offensive, creative stuff. Josh Morrissey has been doing that for the past number of years and was doing that on tonight's game. And was jumping up in the rush at the right times. I think that's a thing, a skill of his that flies under the radar. You love defensemen jumping into the rush, but if you jump into the rush and then turn the puck over and it's a 2-on-0 the other way, well, you suddenly don't love it. Josh Morrissey picks and chooses and always seems to pick right in that sense. So I'm going to take Josh Morrissey for my hardest working Jet. Like I said, captain obvious pick, but the analytics are just eye-popping with him on the ice. And the Jets basically, with Morrissey on the ice tonight, spent the whole game in the Islanders zone. And we know here in this market how great of a player he is and how big of a role he's going to play for Team Canada at the upcoming Olympics. Let's get to our second segment. This is the standout stat of the game. What stat stood out to you from tonight's 5-4 win over the Islanders?
Yeah, I think we've barely touched on, if at all, this milestone that was hit tonight. So I'm going to give my standout stat of the game to Mark Scheifele's 500th career assist, which happened only one time in this game, contrary to the belief of those who may have been in the arena tonight. Absolutely cinematic. It was so funny. You're talking about how fun this game was. One of the fun parts was kind of seeing a little bit of the personality of the players shine through a bit. There's a quick, like when Jonathan Toews scored, a little tongue out. Vlad Nemeskov, a couple little jokes on when he was on the Jumbotron. But Mark Scheifele gets credited for his 500th career assist when Gabe Vilardi makes the shot that ends up being the primary apple on Jonathan Toews' goal from Mark Scheifele's spot on the power play. So I understand how you could make that error. And so they congratulate him. The in-game announcer, congratulates Mark Scheifele. They show him on the bench and he does the Michael Jordan. No, because
he's kind of looking around at his
it.
teammates and he's like, no.
And he knows. So he's laughing and he kind of gives them the nope, not happening. So we're having a chuckle, and not too long after, he does in fact get the 500th assist, and he has a massive smile on his face, stands up, gives a big wave because he knows that he did actually hit that milestone that time. So that was hilarious. Congratulations to the fella. I think, we've talked about Mark Scheifele extensively on this program, as with any Winnipeg Jets based platform, because of how big of a role he plays on this team. 500 career assists is no small feat. So I wanted to give that. If that's not a standout stat, Connor, I don't know what is. So that's why it gets my choice of the night. No, Cole Koepke's expected flurry recoveries per 60 or anything like that tonight.
I think that's the most normal standout stat you've had all season.
Yeah, and you can relish in it for now because you're never getting something that simple again. Don't you worry.
Awesome. No, but I'm glad you touched on that moment in the arena because, Scheifele couldn't tell, and I think like half the fans were clapping because they're like, "Oh, awesome!" and like they didn't notice because, like you said, Vilardi was in Scheifele's spot. The other half of the fans were like, "What?
Like us. Yeah.
What is going on?" And then Scheifele obviously was like, "No, that wasn't me." But anyways, a very nice moment. He got his assist shortly after, and 3 Islanders goals did go by before one assist allegedly happened, before the actual assist did happen, but still 500 career assists for Scheifele. Tremendous accomplishment, like you said, Liz. So my standout stat of the game is something I brought up earlier on, but I think it speaks volumes for where we're at right now. The Winnipeg Jets 3-game winning streak, first 3-game winning streak since November 1st. They won their 3rd consecutive game on November 1st against the Pittsburgh Penguins. There were 2 games before that they won, and now it's been 2.5 months almost, and we're at our second 3-game winning streak for the Winnipeg Jets. So they close out the homestand on a high note with 3 wins coming against the Islanders, the Devils, and what was the third team? Los Angeles Kings. Yes, that was a great night. WST ticket pack night. All of these games are blending together. There's too many games. The condensed schedule affects us all, folks. But anyways, thank you, Liz, for joining me on the WST Postgame reaction. Anything else you want to say on this game, or a look ahead to the Wild game on Thursday?
Yeah, looking ahead to the Wild game, I think we ran into Huss in the concourse on the way out of the game, and I think he speaks volumes for a lot of folks. He said, they win against the Wild, they win against the Leafs. We are all the way back. It has never been so back. We have never been so back as a collective, and I could not agree more. I think a couple of big tests coming up. Obviously, the Minnesota Wild, one of the hottest teams in the league. The Central Division is such a freaking gauntlet. There's lots of history between the Jets and Wild that we don't need to describe to our listener base here, but the Jets haven't had as strong of performances against the Wild, though they did play well against them last time when they did lose eventually. But all that's to say, the Winnipeg Jets were winning every single game against the Wild the last few seasons, and not so much as of late. So divisional opponent, strong team, whatever. You go into their rink and you beat them on Thursday. And then one of your most crushing losses of the 11 consecutive was in Toronto on New Year's Day.
Yes.
So if you can kind of vindicate that a little bit on Saturday, I think that'd be huge for the group. That would be 5 in a row. So definitely looking forward to the quick trip down to Minneapolis for the team, and then back here for Hockey Night in Canada against the Leafs on Saturday. Should be a good one. So really looking forward to the next couple games and hoping that the Jets can, tidy up some of the points that we discussed earlier in the show, and give us a fun show on Thursday night in Grand Casino Arena. No longer at the XL Energy Center.
Yeah, no longer the XL Energy Center. The Jets are going to have 4 highly emotional games in a row here. They get the Wild, rivals. Like you said, we don't need to explain to our audience what that game means. The Leafs, we also don't need to explain to our audience what that game means. Then Monday, they take on the Chicago Blackhawks in Chicago. Jonathan Toews return to Chicago. First game against the Hawks at the United Center. And then the Jets, the very next night, on the second night of a back-to-back, come back home to Winnipeg and take on the St. Louis Blues at home for the first time since that playoff series. So 4 highly emotional, big games in a row here for this Winnipeg Jets team, who's won 3 in a row. We'll see if they can keep it rolling, and how this January plays out with the condensed schedule. It's going to be fascinating. We're going to be breaking down all of these games on the WST Postgame Reaction, and of course, 1 o'clock Monday through Friday right here on the WST channel. And then Lyss and I will have you covered Sunday morning, 9 a.m., coming out of that Leafs game with another edition of WST Sunday Live. But before that, tune in tomorrow, 1 o'clock, Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily for more reaction on tonight's win. Thursday, WST Postgame Reaction, Jets and Wild. And then Lyss and I will have you covered Sunday morning, 9 a.m. We'll talk to you then. Enjoy the games this week, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, 1 o'clock, right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.